by Mr. Stu. I am a Master of Social Work and a licensed clinical social worker in Louisville, Kentucky. And today I'm so excited to be talking with you about teaching kids self-control in a digital world. Isn't it one of the things that I think as parents panic about the most is they know that their children are going to have access to online and the internet and video games and phones and all that kind of thing, but they don't know how much they need to control it, how much does it need to be locked down, how much screen time is too much time, what websites can they visit, how should I put parental locks, all this, breathe easy, it's okay. The world is different today than it has ever been, but just so you know, research shows that the world is safer today than it's ever been. So as I talk to you about teaching kids self-control in a digital world, just know that there are very few things that are life or death. And there are so many different tools that you can use to teach your child how to control themselves rather than trying to control them. But before we jump into any of that, let me go over just a few announcements. Coming up in February, on the third Saturday in February, my team at Mr. Stu TV in Louisville, Kentucky is putting on a pancake party, and we hope that you'll come out and join us. It's at the Republic Bank Foundation YMCA in downtown Louisville. That is Saturday, February 17th at 10 a.m. You do have to have tickets to come, but you can check out MrStuTV.com. That's MisterStuTV.com, and there you'll find all the information about our pancake party. Also, coming out this Friday is our brand new Mr. Stu TV episode about tiredness. Maybe you follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/@MrStuTV, and you know every 2 weeks we release a new episode that helps kids understand a different emotion. This one is one I think we've all been facing as the weather has gotten colder and it's been darker for longer periods of the day. It's tiredness. So please tune in Friday. And that leads me to saying you need to follow us on YouTube. Make sure that you like and subscribe YouTube. We've got two different channels. One is for kids. That's youtube.com/@MrStuTV. And then there's our parents channel. That's youtube.com/@MrStuTV parents. There you can find all the replays of these different Facebook Live events, as well as other tips, tricks, and resources for you as you're caring for your little ones. But today we're talking about teaching kids self-control in a digital world. And I hear all the time, I'm a child therapist in Louisville, Kentucky. I hear all the time that kids are worse today because of the internet. Have you heard that? Have you heard that kids are worse today because of the internet, because of social media, because of whatever it might be? So many times we hear that kids are worse today because of this technology, because of these new things that are coming out. What do you think? Do you believe that? Do you believe that kids are worse today than they have been in the past and it's due to technology? Do you think it's due to something else? Or do you think that that's true at all? What do you think? Do you think kids are worse today than they were in the past because of technology, because of the internet, because of social media, because of all this digital world that we've got going on? Is that the reason that kids are worse? And are they worse? Are kids worse today than they have been in the past? Maybe you've heard it's all because these parents don't know how to control their kids. I hear that all the time from the parents that I work with and from parents that I meet out at different places, and they want to tell me how they think that kids should be raised. And all the time it comes down to it's all because these parents don't know how to control their kids. And I actually believe that's the exact opposite of what the problem is. I think that there are too many parents and too many adults trying to control children rather than teaching those children how to control themselves. Today, I'm not going to be talking to you about how to put a lock on the phone or what website to go to for parental controls. I'm going to talk to you about building self-control in your child and really helping them understand why that self-control is best for them. It's not about trying to place on some control factor that your child doesn't even understand. It's about trying to build up self-control in your child so that they know that the choices they make have consequences, both positive and negative. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And really, the main thing that we all want is for children to be safe, whether it be in the real world or in the digital world. We just want kids to be safe. And so many times it can feel like we need to panic because kids are getting into things, or they're learning about things, or we heard about this thing on the news, or it's all this frenzy of panic and worry and fear. Breathe easy. We can keep kids safe, and we can teach them how to keep themselves safe in this digital world. At schools, they practice fire drills, and they practice tornado drills, and they practice intruder drills. They practice all of those drills so that if something is to happen, it's not planning that something is going to happen. It's the plan for if this were to happen, we want everyone to know what to do. And that's really the way to look at technology. It's really the way to look at teaching kids this self-control, is to understand that there may be things that come up. And so as best as you can, you want to try to prepare your child to deal with those things as they come up. It's not about waiting until there is a problem. It's about waiting until there is access. Let me say that again. It's not about waiting until there's a problem. It's about waiting until there is access. Let's talk through some of those scenarios that maybe haunt your nightmares. Maybe an adult online could find a child. Now, be aware that kids today are less likely than ever in the history of our planet. They are less likely today to be kidnapped than in any other time. And when you hear about kidnappings, and it's not something to take lightly, but only 0.1%, 0.1%, 0.1% of those kidnappings happen from someone the child doesn't know. Most of the time, 99.9% of the time, the person who kidnaps a child knows the child. It's someone that the child trusts, and that person means the child no harm. They just have a conflict going on somewhere else, and they've decided to take the child, whether it be a custody agreement, whether it be just a fight that they've had with their spouse or their partner, or a former spouse or former partner, whatever it might be. 99.9% of the time, children who are legally kidnapped are taken by someone that they know and that they trust. Now, that can give you some solace, some rest, some peace. It's also scary to think about who are those people that you're letting into your child's life. But as we talk today in dealing with helping kids learn self-control in this digital world, one of those fears is that an adult could find a child and come and harm that child or abduct that child or do something that we don't want them to do with that child. That is something to be aware of. Maybe it's just that you're concerned that an adult will contact your child and there will be inappropriate messages, whether it be verbal or whether it be through pictures or videos or anything else. That is a concern. Maybe it could just be that you don't want your child to be exposed to rampant violence, or for them to see without understanding, for them to see all sorts of community violence and all sorts of things going on in the world that they're just not yet ready to understand and tolerate. Maybe you're concerned that your child will see or hear or be introduced to language that you don't think that your child should be using, or that they'll see this language and it's funny in this context, but can they understand that it's not funny in this context? And maybe it's just that you are aware or that you're nervous that your child will have an early exposure to anything explicit, whether it be sexually explicit, whether it be content explicit, whether it be just about a topic that they're just not ready to tolerate, just any type of explicit material. Remember, it's important to not wait until there's a problem, wait until there is access. If your child doesn't have a phone and you're not planning on getting them a phone, you don't have to have the phone talk with them until they have their phone. If you're concerned about your child getting on the internet, but they don't have access to a computer or to a phone or to the internet, you don't need to have that conversation until they have that access. But right before and as they have that access, it's important for you to have these conversations to help them learn to control themselves. Research shows that today, for children in today's digital world, that the average age of exposure to pornography is 11 years old for boys and 13 years old for girls. Now, that is far too young to understand the material that they would see. And that's really what this whole talk is going to come down to. It's not about trying to control kids for the sake of controlling them, or controlling them because we think that they shouldn't see these different things. What it is that children's brains, children at least under the age of 12 and then far beyond age 12, but at least up to age 12, really don't have this part in the brain that helps them to understand the difference between fiction and reality. That part of the brain is this front part of the brain right here, and it's in the front, and it's called the frontal lobe, or the prefrontal cortex, or the frontal cortex. That part of the brain helps us distinguish between fiction and reality, and it also helps us to understand the ambiguity between maybe watching a show that's based in reality, but we know that there's some nuances to it. Well, children don't understand that. They don't have that frontal lobe online all the way, and it doesn't come online until around age 12, and then isn't fully developed until at least age 25. So imagine you have a 9-year-old who's watching something violent, and their brain doesn't understand that that violent thing is not reality. It's fiction. Their brain doesn't get that. Or a young child who might be exposed to pornography at a young age, their brain isn't telling them that's not real. It's not really how it works. Or maybe it's a child who's exposed to all sorts of harsh language, maybe that's what we should say, harsh, intense, strong language, and they hear people saying it in the movies they watch, in the TV shows that they see, in the music they listen to, and the video games that they play, and they see all those things, they hear it all, and they don't understand that, yes, this is appropriate maybe in this one context, or these people talk this way, but not everyone talks this way all the time, and maybe it might be acceptable here in this situation, but it's not acceptable here in this situation. Children's brains literally cannot understand that. It's important to have some guidelines and some guidance, and it's important not to wait until there's a problem, but wait until there is access. Let's talk a little bit about the rating system and why that rating system is important. And I think as we look at this, as you see some of the differences, but especially some of the similarities, you'll see that these ratings really do matter. They really are an important way to help kids understand what is appropriate for them and what is not yet appropriate for them. It doesn't mean don't ever watch it. It doesn't mean don't watch it until you're 25. It doesn't mean that. It just means maybe you're not ready for that just yet. Let's start by talking about TV ratings. And I've got some TV shows here. You can see I've got Peppa Pig, I've got Pokemon, I've got Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, I've got Star Wars Clone Wars, I've got The Office, and I've got The Sopranos. What I have here is an outline of the 6 different television ratings. Peppa Pig is what's called a TVY show. And you can see, oops, wrong way. You can see Peppa Pig, look at how fictional that is. You can tell that this is not real. Peppa Pig is a talking pig, and the pig drawings are even not that good, right? That is because it really helps children understand that this is a fictional, storytelling, fun, happy reality. It's not real, and that's okay. This is just a story. Just sit back and relax. That's the message from Peppa Pig. That's the message from these TVY shows. These shows are suitable for all children, and they contain themes and elements that are well suited for a very young audience. TVY. Then we have Pokemon. Now you can see the difference between Peppa Pig and Pokemon is that Pikachu, even though Pikachu is a fictional character, Pikachu looks a little more real, right? Pikachu starts to have a bit more shape to him. Also, Pikachu interacts with people in their world, and the other Pokemon interact with people. I'm actually kind of a Pokemon fan, and that show is rated TVY7. Those shows, they might contain some fantasy violence, or they might contain some comedic violence like slipping on a banana peel or whatever it might be. But TVY7 shows are suitable for children around 7 years old. What that means is that they've probably been to school, they've been exposed to some situations, and these are situations that they can relate to, tolerate, and understand. Then, as you move on, there's the show Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. This is a TVG show. What that stands for is general audience. It just means anybody could watch and have a good time. It's very similar to TVY. TVY is actually especially made for very young children. TVY7 is 7 and up. And then we have TVG, which is that general audience. And they don't contain any strong material. But you can see that Peppa Pig is very, very fictional. Pokemon is a little less fictional. And then Mickey Mouse, even though these are characters, look at how much more like people they look. They've got the people parts, whereas Peppa Pig looks very ambiguous like blobs. Mickey Mouse starts to put it all together. It looks a bit more real, even though it's fiction. But in these shows, in these TVG shows, children are not going to encounter anything that is too intense. Next, there are shows that are called TVPG. These shows are the shows that suggest parental guidance. And Star Wars: The Clone Wars is one of those shows. Parental guidance. It doesn't mean that there's going to be anything huge and harsh going on, anything wildly realistic that's going to just blow your child's mind or cause them to panic. But it means that at a certain age, your child can understand these things. This is probably before teenage years. It's probably in elementary school at some time. Parental guidance. It means you know your child. Can your child understand Star Wars: The Clone Wars? Can they understand that these are fictional people in a fictional world? And it's still, you can see, it looks more like people. There's still Yoda here, but there's actual people, but they actually call them Jedis. And they have different names for things. And so it's starting to become more real, but it's still suitable for children around elementary school age. They might have some suggestive dialogue, some very mild romantic situations. Very rarely in these shows will you see a sexual situation, but it could be that they kiss. It could be even on shows on Nickelodeon or Disney Channel. Sometimes they make out. But these are not situations where your child is going to be overexposed to things they can't yet understand and tolerate. Then moving on, we have The Office. Office is a TV 14 show, and that means that it might have some intensely suggestive dialogue. We know that Michael Scott's favorite jokes are the "that's what she said" jokes, and it's important to understand that there might be some strong, coarse language, some sexual situations, though very rarely is there nudity, and there might be some intense violence that happens in shows like The Office. And then finally, we have shows that are TVMA. That means only for mature audiences. These are shows like The Sopranos, Game of Thrones. And again, you can see how real this looks. So we go from Peppa Pig, this blob, to Pokemon, to Mickey Mouse, to Star Wars, to The Office, to The Sopranos, and you can see how that shading of reality goes away more and more as the ratings go up. That's important to understand because children don't have that part that can help them distinguish between fiction and reality. Let's quickly talk about movies in the same way. Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo is a G-rated movie, and you can see these are not people. There's a few people in the movie, but it's very, very fictional. Then we've got The Princess Bride. That's a TV PG movie. They might have some mild language, some scenes of violence, and maybe even some brief nudity. But for the most part, these are not situations that are going to overwhelm a child. Then we move on to movies that are rated PG-13. And again, you can see how much more real these things are looking. PG-13, like The Avengers. These shows might contain more intense violence, even some more fantasy violence or some sci-fi violence. They might have some more language, and they might have some minimal sexual situations in these PG-13 movies. Then we move on to movies that are rated R, like The Wolf of Wall Street. Again, look how real this looks because it's based on real. It's based on reality. As adults, it's kind of blurring that reality world. But for children, they don't understand that what they're watching isn't real. And then finally, there's movies that are even called NC-17, which are movies that if you were to see in a theater, you can't go into unless you're at least 17, and actually in some states 18, and some states 21. Without being that age. Even if your adult is with you, you can't go in. That's movies like Shame. They contain only adult content and themes, including explicit sexual scenes and extreme violence. So again, you can see this reality moving up, moving up, moving up. And then finally, there's video games. So there's games like Dora's Great Big World that is a game rated EC, which is early childhood, very young children. Then there's the Super Mario games, those are rated E. Then we've got games like Minecraft that are rated for kids 10 years old and up. We've got games like Fortnite that are rated T for teen, games like Grand Theft Auto that are rated mature, and then we've got games like Manhunt 2 that are rated adults only. And again, you can see the progression of how real these things look. They look more and more real as you move up because children can't understand the difference. That's what this comes down to. It comes down to helping your child discriminate between what's real and what's fiction, what is positive to bring in and what might just be causing some harm. It's important to have open conversations with your children. Not that, hey, you've done a bad thing, you've watched something bad, you've tuned into something inappropriate, you searched this online. It's not about coming down on children. It's not about trying to control them more. It's not about trying to restrain them. It's about trying to help them understand that these choices and this blending of reality, this not being able to understand this reality, is damaging. Because if you see something and you think it's real, and then in the real world, when you get shot and killed, you don't respawn. In the real world, when you say certain things to certain people, they get very angry. In the real world, when you look at or touch someone in a way that they don't like, you can even go to jail for that thing. And if children are not guided to understand that, then they'll keep making mistakes over and over and over. we're preparing children today for what they're going to face tomorrow without taking them to tomorrow too early. It's very important to have these open and honest conversations with your child and to talk with them about why it's important for them to stay away from things they can't yet understand and tolerate. Because when you get into the brain, if children are exposed to things too early, it actually causes legitimate trauma in the brain. Even a fictional movie can cause trauma. Being exposed to pornography too early in life can cause trauma. Playing a video game and feeling like you are in it and getting shot at can cause trauma when you can't distinguish fiction from reality. And helping children understand that, not trying to control them, not trying to force it onto them, but helping children understand that is going to be the key in us allowing children to stay safe in this digital world. I hope that today you've learned a few things and that it's important to have open, honest conversations with kids. It's not about trying to layer a bunch of control on top of them. It's about helping them understand why these things are important, why it's important not to watch something that's too extreme, why to not search for things that they're not yet ready to understand and tolerate. And then here's the thing. Accidents will happen. Choices, negative choices, will be made. But your child is learning a new skill. And so if you've had these conversations up front, then when the difficulty happens, when the mistake takes place, you're able to talk to your child about, hey, remember when we talked about that? Here's why this is going to be so important. Understand that children make mistakes as they learn new things, just like we do as adults. And so if you are implementing these things, if you are having these open, honest conversations with your children, no, they're going to mess it up. But when they do, because you had the conversation earlier, you can come back to it and you can follow up. Hey, when you saw that, what did you think about that? When you heard that, how did you feel? When they said that to you, what did you think? When they asked you that question, how did you respond? And if you'll have those open, honest conversations with kids, they'll be learning how to control themselves rather than relying on you to control them. And that's how kids can stay safe in today's digital world. Have those open, honest conversations. Don't wait until there's a problem. Wait until there is access. And make sure that you follow us for more tips, tricks, and resources here at Mr. Stu TV. We're everywhere on social media at Mr. Stu TV. And on YouTube, we've got our two channels, youtube.com/@MrStuTV and youtube.com/@MrStuTV Parents. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you back here very soon. Bye-bye.